Hi, welcome back to TechRadar Talks. I'm Vic Hood, TechRadar's gaming writer.
And I'm Henry St. Ledger, TechRadar's home technology writer.
And I am Matt Phillips, TechRadar's video producer. And of course, last week we got our first glimpse at the PS5 and 26 games announced for the PS5. Huge news, so we couldn't resist coming on camera and chatting to all of you about it. If you like this video and you want to see more just like it, subscribe to TechRadar YouTube channel and check out our other videos. But without further ado, Henry, why don't you kick us off? Let us know what your favourite game that was announced at the event was.
Well, a lot to choose from, because obviously we got to see a whole 26, but I think, for me, the one I'm keenest to talk about is Spider-Man Miles Morales. Miles Morales? Morales. Okay, thank you for correcting me there.
Have you not seen the Spider-Man animated movie that came out?
I have a bad memory, but I remember the film was good.
It was great.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's one of the few games that we know is going to be a launch title, or at least is coming out holiday 2020, so it should be there day one, I imagine, or shortly after. And there's been a bit of confusion over what exactly the game is. First, it seemed like a standalone game, and a Sony exec said it was an expansion remaster of the previous game. So it seemed like we were getting a remaster of the 2018 game with some Miles DLC. And then Insomniac clarified it was a standalone game. So whatever we're getting some Spider-Man content at the end of this year.
Yeah, we were all chatting about it in the WhatsApp group when it was happening, and I was saying, like, it can't be a brand new game, it can't be a sequel, because that team hasn't had long enough to work on it, surely. Yeah. Forgetting how long the past 2 years have feels like it's been much shorter for some reason. But yeah, just crazy announcement, and yeah, I for one are very much looking forward to that. Obviously, the first Spider-Man PS4 game was left on a bit of a cliffhanger with Miles, and so yeah, I'm excited to see where we pick up with that. Vic, what did you think? Are you excited for it?
I am excited for it. I think it's one of those ones where we kind of expected it, but we didn't have our hopes up. Like, I was expecting we would either get like a Horizon Zero Dawn 2 or a God of War or a Spider-Man. We weren't going to get like more than one of those.
Yeah.
And as we'll come on to later, we did get more than one of those. I'm excited to see. There was a lot of confusion around how they actually presented it, and even afterwards, it was like Henry said, we didn't know what we were getting. And a standalone, a bit like Lost Legacy, is good. It's a spin-off, and that was still a good game. So hopefully, it's going to stand up. I'm looking forward to seeing a bit more of it.
Yeah, and Henry, after playing I assumed you played the first Spider-Man PS4 game, right?
No, I did not.
What? I was going to ask you what improvements you want to see in this, but I'll direct that question to Vic then. I can't believe you haven't played it.
Yeah.
Get off the call, Henry, and go play it. Okay, we'll wait.
I think, the first Spider-Man was fantastic, and the web swinging and everything felt great, but it was quite short. They packed a really powerful punch in what it did like present, and in terms of like superhero games, it had the most concise like narrative and story, and I cried at one point, and I want to see that again. But it did feel like, I think you could finish that game within like 10 hours, and I think I platinumed it because I got like all the collectibles, and I love those little, same as in like Batman Arkham Asylum and stuff, you get like all those little collectibles, like further lore from the universe, which I love really in all those games, because like you can visit Uncle Ben's grave and stuff like that, and I hope that they put that kind of thing in. But I think it's a good way of them introducing people to Miles Morales, because everyone knows Peter Parker. Like at the time, like when the trailer was on, my boyfriend turned to me, he was like, "But Spider-Man's Peter Parker. Who's this guy?" I'm like, what? But no, he's next Spider-Man. So I think it's really good to bring in the average mainstream person to realize that it's not just Peter Parker, and just how badass Miles Morales actually is.
Yeah, exactly. And you do, Henry, I should let you know, you do get an origin story, quite a nice little origin story for Miles Morales in the first Spider-Man PS4 game. So go play it before you get too excited for this one. But yeah, one of the things.
Sorry.
No, go on.
Yeah, I think the reason I didn't play the previous game is because the Peter Parker story is so established, and I've seen it so many times.
That game starts though with
version of it.
yeah, that game starts with an older Peter Parker. I think he's been Spider-Man for like 6 years. So you don't do any of the Uncle Ben stuff too much and all that sort of stuff. So it is kind of a fresh take and it's interesting.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm hoping for, though, or one of the things I'm interested to see is, obviously when we first got our very first glimpse of what the PS5 would be able to do way back when, they showcased Spider-Man as sort of a case study for it, right? And the no load times, Spider-Man has this fast travel mechanic in it, which I barely used because swinging around that city is so much fun, but where you ride the subway, right? And it gives you a cute little cinematic of Spider-Man riding the subway, which is awesome, but those load times were quite long. So one of the things they first showcased about the PS5 was the SSD and no load times, and they used Spider-Man to show that. Literally just dip to black and dip back up and you're there. So really interesting to see how that plays out, because I'm assuming the Miles Morales, they haven't said this again, but I'm assuming whatever Miles Morales version we get will also be available on PS4. So it'll be interesting to really compare those two. Maybe it won't be. Maybe it'll be PS5 exclusive. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's at the minute it's a bit up in the air. There's some of the ones that we know will be both, but also it seems Sony's really been pushing the fact that they don't want people struggling across both consoles. They want to move people, and they've said that like the next generation is the next generation, and there will be stuff exclusive to that, which is a totally different approach to what Xbox is doing, where Xbox wants to kind of be accessible to everybody because they know people can't afford it. But when it comes to PlayStation, they want some exclusive like content that has people like want to upgrade. So I think Miles Morales, I wouldn't be surprised if it's just a PS5 exclusive, to be honest.
It'll be interesting to see. Yeah. So from one Insomniac game to another, Vic, tell us about your favourite game that was revealed at the event.
So my favourite one was Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. And just because I didn't expect it, like, it seems like I think there was rumours like floating around like a couple of months ago that Ratchet and Clank would come up. But it's the same kind of thing as like, we've now grown accustomed to people saying, oh, your favourite like old characters are going to come back in this game. You're like, no, they're not. And you don't want to get your hopes up. So you're like, meh. But it was the one, and it was the best looking trailer out of all those. It's the one I think that showed off the power of the PS5 probably the best. Like, it was a bit disorientating, like just the speed, but it also shows off like the speed of that SSD and just the sheer like how detailed those worlds are. Like there was points where I was like taking in like as far away as I could rather than the close up, and the detail is incredible. I think Ratchet and Clank's a classic, and the PS4 version of Ratchet and Clank was so good. It's just like that fantastic, like, don't need to overthink it, don't need to, like, not really violent, just fun, like reminiscent of when we first played games. Like, I love that game, and it's just ridiculous. So this one, to see that it's going to bring that back, but on the next level, it is properly. I watched that and like I teared up because I was like, this is next gen. Like, this is what we've been waiting for. This is what we want to see. Like, it doesn't have to be games like Horizon and stuff where it's like detailed, like the characters look more human. You can have something like totally ridiculous. Like cartoon style, and that's still going to look incredible. Also, there's a female Lombax. Excited to see what that's about. But I am a bit like jumping between those rifts and stuff. I'm like, oh, I get motion sickness.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I think even in the Mark Cerny presentation, when he was talking about the SSD, he was talking about the potential to having to slow down these now instantaneous loads, because you're absolutely right. When Ratchet and Clank were falling between those rifts, literally transferring from level to level within a second, it was a little bit disorientating, especially at the sort of high-speed grinding rail sections and stuff like that. So potentially having to artificially slow that down because the PS5's SSD is so quick is a really interesting concept, and it'd be interesting to see.
PlayStation 5 promises longer loading times.
Exactly. It would be really interesting to see if they have to do that.
But I think they're acknowledging a bit more in terms of, just because I have to talk about, because it has an idea of what's going to next gen. With The Last of Us accessibility options, I'm not going to talk about anything else to do with it, but it has accessibility options for motion sickness. Because I found myself playing the game, and it's like, it's so realistic, and the way that they've done it is so well, I found myself actually becoming sick, like nauseous from playing. And there's all these options to like take down motion blur and all these things that make it super realistic and super like fast, because you get surprisingly quite sick the more real life things become, because you can't just like wing your head left and right as quickly as you do in a game, like scouring the area, or else you will definitely vomit. So I think with
we promise
with those SSDs like coming in with that speed, I think maybe we will need to see like some of those accessibility options, because I'm not sure we're quite made for speed the way that we think that we are.
Yeah, definitely be interesting to see. And then of course we'll head on now to my favorite game of the show. Couldn't leave here without talking about what they closed with, kind of the game at least they closed with, Horizon Forbidden West. Did you guys play Horizon 1? What did you think of it? What do you think of Forbidden West?
I didn't like Horizon Zero Dawn.
Hang up. Henry, are you going to tell me you didn't play it?
No, I actually played this one.
Oh, thank God.
Really. I definitely didn't finish it.
No, I didn't finish it.
I love the world, but the same thing happens with all these massive open world games that are so beautifully curated. Is I immediately feel like I'm doing busy work to pick up plants.
I get that.
But yeah, I'm interested to see what Forbidden West does, and it may well pull me in. But if it's a game where Sony is talking about how it's even bigger than Horizon Zero Dawn, I'm just going to turn off.
Yeah, I think there's been a split like opinion. I thought that I was like the only person that didn't like that first game. I just didn't like. On paper, it's the exact type of game. I love open worlds, and I just couldn't connect with it. I couldn't connect with the story. I couldn't connect with Aloy. I couldn't connect with any of that stuff. But I've seen a lot of people on Twitter saying they also didn't like the first, but this one could drag them in. And to be honest, I was watching it and I was like, I could try it again, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of understand what you're saying about the story, and it kind of lines up with what you were saying, Henry, about doing busy work. That I loved Horizon, and I played every single part of it I could. I absolutely adored it, but I think the main thing that I loved of it was the combat and sort of the interesting enemies and robot dinosaurs. Who doesn't love robot dinosaurs? Yeah. But the variety that brought in the enemies that you were facing, I really enjoyed, and the weapons you would collect and stuff. I found them all really interesting, but on a story level, I didn't connect with it all that much. It's kind of ridiculous. You're not going to be able to relate to a cave woman who's fighting robot dinosaurs and trying to figure out what happened to the world. It's absolutely bizarre, obviously. But one of the reasons I think I didn't connect with the story is because there was so much other stuff to do. Like you were saying, I want to go around and do everything, collect every plant and fight every animal or whatever. And I kind of lose track of where I am in the story. And then this guy pops up randomly and he's a big deal apparently, but I've totally forgotten who he is. Do you know what I mean? And so yeah, I was just losing track with where I was with the story, and that's something I experienced in Red Dead as well, and these other open world massive games. When you don't have all the time in the world to sink hundreds of hours in, I totally understand where you're coming from. So it'd be interesting to see what direction they go with Horizon 2 Forbidden West.
Yeah, it's just, I think that's the key part of like open world games, is you need a story that really like captivates you. Like The Witcher is massive, but I can stick with that. Like it is all the little threads of that, every side quest and everything is so interesting. You want to explore and you do take the time.
It's really interesting because I was the complete opposite. I fell out of The Witcher very quickly, so it's interesting, and different people different.
But I think it depends just like what you're in it for. Like I know people have not connected with The Witcher because they say the combat's clunky and they struggle with that. Whereas combat takes a back seat to story to me, and it seems like in your case, combat is like more important than like the story part takes a bit of a back seat.
Yeah, I think I'm just more willing to put up with a less than incredible story if the gameplay keeps me returning, right? And the gameplay is so satisfying. And then you have something like God of War, which really merged both together in this incredibly perfect way. And I think that's the most fun I've ever had in a game, combat-wise, and equally one of the best stories I've ever seen in a game. So yeah, of course, we didn't see a God of War game. I didn't personally expect to see a God of War game. And I think Horizon's probably a long way off. I think Ratchet might unfortunately be a long way off. And I think we'll be lucky to see Miles Morales on launch day as well, unfortunately.
I don't know. Like Miles Morales could maybe be be up there. The problem is, we've got Insomniac doing 2 games, and one game's going to take priority. Miles Morales will be the one that takes priority over Ratchet and Clank at this point. I think God of War is an interesting one. I did expect to see God of War, or I hope to see God of War, and I still think it's in the works.
Oh, for sure.
I just don't know when we're going to see it, because there was very few load times in that game anyway. It was already taking those like steps that the PS5 is wanting to make like just mandatory across all games.
Yeah.
So whatever they're doing with that is going to be interesting, but I think it's going to take some time. But there was some fantastic games on offer, and to be honest, I was surprised to see Sony kind of showcase quite a few, I guess, smaller third-party games they didn't exactly expect to see, like Bug Snacks. Like,
what is Bug
showing
Snacks?
In the next generation with something like Bug Snacks, which I really thought was going to be like a cover for, like, at the end the walrus was going to be like, hey, here's Croc.
Yeah, or somehow transition into Knack or something. I don't know.
It's a God of War game.
That would have been incredible. But yeah, I have no idea what Bug Snacks is, and I have no idea if I want it or not.
Yeah, it's an odd one, and it was they did do a diverse range of games, because I was saying at the start, it was like, before this came out, it felt like the PlayStation is matured so much that it's not necessarily going to be a kids console. But they did throw into that reveal like Little Big Planet. Well, not even Little Big Planet, but Sackboy.
Yeah.
And they threw in Bug Snacks and a couple of games that are quite family friendly that we always forget about, I guess, as adults.
Yeah.
We forget.
And of course, we have to mention it, talking about a console for kids. It's certainly styled in an interesting way. I don't think any of us expected to see the hardware itself at the event, but they did, of course, show it off. So, Henry, give me your top-level thoughts. Do we love it? Do we hate it? What do we reckon?
I am so undecided. I don't even know where to begin. It is so... What I find so interesting is what a different angle it's taken from Microsoft, which has gone for, in my mind, like quite an inoffensive shape. Like it's hard to hate a rectangle, and it's very, very clear wanting to do its own thing, wanting to look very different from the current generation, establish itself as in quite an individual way. It looks a bit like a file binder that I used to carry my homework in, or maybe like a trench coat. I'm a bit confused about what it's going for, but I think that at the end of the day, it's going to sit next to my telly, and I'm going to forget about it when I'm playing God of War or Miles Morales.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I'll be honest, I prefer the Xbox for sure. I want my games console to not be eye-catching, I guess. I'd rather it just be another black box, sort of tucked away and not drawing attention. One thing I did think was interesting, and they certainly very heavily emphasized this in their sort of B-roll for it, was there's a lot of vents on this, which I'm very glad about. My PS4 sounds like a Boeing 747. God knows what it's going to be like playing The Last of Us. I'm terrified, to be honest with you. But sounds like it's about to explode every time I turn it on. But that was really interesting. So that was the one part of the design that I really liked. But the rest of it, I'm less than thrilled. What about yourself, Vic?
I'm a bit like Henry, as I'm not quite sure. Like, I don't hate it and I don't love it. I keep feeling like Sony, I don't like the Xbox Series X design really either. I think both of them are a bit like meh. I'm just keep considering how much space they're going to take up. Like this is going to be huge, and I've seen pictures of comparison of what the PS5 is going to look like compared to all these other consoles. I'm like, oh, we're just going backwards towards like the Duke, like Xbox, which is like monster thing. I think Xbox has kind of played it safe, and it's both their designs seem to be reminiscent of like what they're going for. So Xbox is pushing into more, we are essentially like a gaming PC. So it's built a console that's in the shape of like a gaming tower. Whereas PlayStation, the PS5, it increasingly feels like they're wanting to be like, this is not your dad's console. We're angsty and we're cool, and we're not just a toy anymore. We're not just like, we're beyond that. And it feels like it's hit that angsty starting to pick up smoking like stage of its.
This is the mid-movie makeover. For the geek character,
where it feels like it's like, I don't know her anymore. Like, that's not me. I'm cool and futuristic, and it wants to it shows, looking at the designs, it shows what they want to like portray, and PlayStation really wants to show that it is the future and that this is a leap into something entirely new, and people do, love it or hate it, but like the discourse we have at the minute about how it looks, it'll be like a couple of months, people are going to buy it anyway, even if it's ugly. Like nobody's going to care. Like every time a console comes out, there's always these discussions, and at the end of the day, that then just becomes the status quo, and we'll see consoles that look like that, and it'll just become natural. It's just because they've done something so different. It's so kind of unexpected. After we saw the DualSense, we had an idea that it would be white and stuff. I don't think we thought it was gonna, look like a router. But
it's interesting. You talk about looking to the future and doing things unexpected, and of course they kind of announced two consoles, right? They have the discless version of the of the PS5. So why do you think, or do you think that that's important, Henry? And why do you think that they've decided to come out and announce both at the same time?
Well, I feel they've been backed into a corner a little bit just by Microsoft having set that precedent for a discless console. I think probably a lot of gamers were looking at the PS5 and the announcement around it and thinking, oh, I've got all these PS4 discs and I still going to be able to play them on there. So it is a bit of an act of faith, I think, saying that, don't worry, we are going to look after your discs. Though it does look a little bit like an inconvenient afterthought. The disc drive on there, like it's quite clear that was not in the initial design.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Fit it in there.
Yeah, it makes the console lopsided and not symmetrical, and it does almost, like you say, feel like an afterthought. What are your thoughts on it, Vic? Do we think that this is going to allow PlayStation to undercut the Xbox by making the discless version cheaper than the Xbox, or do we think that this is going to allow PlayStation to make the disc version much more expensive and then bring the discless version more in line with however much the Series X costs?
Yeah, I guess the minute I seen it, I got more concerned about what the price is going to be, because the taking away the disc, then ultimately you're taking away the Blu-ray player, which is going to be part of it. Taking away that part, it is going to be discounted, but it's not going to be discounted by that much. Like if we look at the Xbox One S all digital and stuff, that's between like £50 and £100 less. But if you're looking at a very expensive console, you might be like, well, actually, this one's cheaper, and just because of that, you may get it anyway. But it does worry me a bit in that that's not something Sony's done before, and also I find it a bit odd in the sense that like Microsoft making a digital console made sense when it happened. Like Microsoft's been building up, and I know that on PS5. The digital edition, you'll still be able to have downloads and stuff like that. Essentially, the only difference is that disc tray. But with Xbox, that One S became packaged with Xbox Game Pass, and what they wanted to push was you could have those downloads, but actually the reason for that console really was to push Xbox Game Pass a bit more. And they've built this platform that is like, there's 10 million people on Xbox Game Pass, there's 2.2 million on PS Now. And I've written an op-ed kind of about it where I don't feel like PlayStation has built up this like digital content service, or like that you don't think digital content, particularly when you think of PlayStation. That's something that like Xbox is fantastic at. And you'll be able to, have downloads and kind of the same stuff as you would have, and the content will be the same, but really, even if they don't rely solely on those digital services are kind of something you expect to be quite strong for a digital console.
Yeah, it's interesting. And obviously they have PlayStation Now, right, which is, their version of their competitor to Game Pass. But the fact that they didn't mention PlayStation Now at all at this conference, why wouldn't they say, oh, you buy your PlayStation 5 day one, you get 2 months of PlayStation Now. If they're really backing it, if they really want that to be a thing, include it with the digital version of your console. push people to it, make them have a reason to go play it there. And then they could have mentioned God of War as well. You know, did you know God of War's on there and it's one of the best games of the generation? You better play it on your PS5 and it'll look great and blah 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 blah. Sorry, Henry, what were you going to say?
I was saying, no, yeah, Sony is clearly not as confident in its online services, and I think it shows. I think even in the last few days, we've been hearing about UI changes for both the next-gen consoles. The Xbox Series X sounds like the UI is going to be pretty much identical to the Xbox One, or not that much changed, but PS5 is looking for 100% overhaul. I imagine we're going to be hearing more about PS Now and online services and streaming for the PS5, but I imagine it's going to be a lot closer, and Sony is really going to be looking to repackage its stance and change its image as somewhere where you go for that kind of thing, which it really isn't.
I think that's going to be vital for that kind of thing, because like there's rumors of projects Lockhart for Xbox, and that makes sense. You're like, oh, Xbox is going to make another digital console. It's got such a strong backing of digital content, and as I said, the PS5 it's going to offer the same on the digital edition as is on the normal one. It's just that we've come to expect that digital consoles lean quite considerably on those digital services, even if like it's not necessarily the be on the end all. You don't need those services. You just want, overall, you kind of want a more streamlined experience. Like, you don't want to have to keep downloading games all the time. You want to kind of have just this library, or that's me personally, that's what I use my One S all digital for, is I use it for Games Pass, and without Games Pass I don't know if I'd really use it. But yeah, hopefully they lay out their plans in terms of services going forward a bit more. But the price is the one. I think they're holding out on price as long as possible, and it's going to sting.
I think so. So if it comes out, and let's say the PS5 with the disc drive is £600 and the PS5 without the disc drive is £500, are you buying one day one, Henry? And if you are, which one are you getting?
I would absolutely get the one without the disc, but I'm not that much of a disc owner these days anyway. But I also do not think it's going to be £100 price difference. I think we'd be lucky to get 60 quid. I think 60 quid is the biggest discount I'm hoping for, and you know that is you know a lot of money, you know, considering it is a decent percentage of the overall price, whatever it's going to be. But it's not going to be the saving that is really going to. I don't know. I don't think I think people who are on the fence about it, I don't know if it's going to swing people really firmly one way or the other. I think it's going to be a bit of a grey area.
Yeah. So what do you reckon, Vic? Give me a price point. What do you reckon they're both going to be at?
At the minute, I'm starting to think realistically, I think that what you're assuming might be right. The hopeful in me is like, oh, maybe that 500 quid one is what the proper one will be, and the other one will be less. But I honestly don't think that's going to be the case. I think that we are going to be looking somewhere up near 600 at this point. But that seems to be shifting an awful lot, and they are holding out. And at the minute, it's down to, I bet they'll have a price point in their head. What now both Microsoft and Sony are doing are waiting to see what the other one does, because then that's when the marketing comes into play, because it's okay, do we sell it at a loss so that we can sell more? Do they try and undercut each other? Like, that's when it's not particularly so much about like what it should be priced, but it's more about tactics in terms of what's going to sell. But I am concerned that Sony, this whole time, they haven't been trying to assure us this is going to be an affordable console by any means. They're not trying to, it doesn't seem like they're trying to weigh that up. They just keep specifying that it's going to be value. And they're like, it's going to be value, it's going to be value. And like, okay, so what they're trying to tell us is you're going to spend a lot of money, but it'll be worth it. And that's making me concerned, because it seems like they're trying to, lessen the blow before we get it.
Yeah.
So
at least hopefully their messaging might be better this time than the PS3 when they said, "Oh, you'll love it so much you'll get a second job to be able to afford it."
Oh.
And that was their official messaging. And that was great. So let's hope they don't make the same mistakes again. So thank you so much for joining me both. I enjoyed chatting to you about it all. Let us know in the comments down below what you think the PS5 is going to be priced at. It'd be interesting to see what you guys have to say about that. Remember, if you like the video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, go watch all of our other videos about the PS5, and join us next time. Why did my voice crack when I said that right at the end? Bastards. Join us next time. I'm keeping it in now. Keeping all this in as well. Why not?
Yeah. That's authenticity. It feels real.
Yeah, exactly. We don't mess around.